The morning sun reflected off the glass and steel building as the black Tesla pulled into the visitor parking spot. The car door opened and a tall man stepped out, straightening his navy blue suit jacket. Andrew Wilson took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air and looked up at the Techvision headquarters, 40 stories of architectural ambition reaching toward the clouds. Today wasn't just any meeting for Andrew. As the founder and CEO of Skyline Investments, he had turned down 3 other appointments to be here. The leather portfolio tucked under his arm contained the papers that could save Techvision from financial ruin, a $50 million rescue package that would keep the company afloat and preserve hundreds of jobs. Andrew checked his watch. 10 minutes early, just as he preferred. Punctuality had been drilled into him by his grandfather, who always said, "If you're not early, you're already late." That advice, along with an unwavering work ethic, had guided Andrew from his humble beginnings in a small apartment above his parents' corner store to becoming one of the most respected investment leaders in the country. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from his chief financial officer. "Good luck today. Remember, we have options if the numbers don't work." Andrew smiled slightly. The numbers would work. They always did when he was involved. He had spent 3 sleepless nights reviewing Techvision's financial statements, identifying inefficiencies, and creating a revival strategy that could turn the struggling tech company around within 18 months. What had impressed him most wasn't their product line, but the talented workforce that just needed proper leadership. Walking through the parking lot, Andrew nodded at a maintenance worker who was emptying trash bins. "Morning," he said warmly. The man looked surprised but returned the greeting with a smile. Andrew made it a point to acknowledge everyone he encountered, regardless of their position. His own father had worked as a janitor for years to put food on the table, and Andrew never forgot those lessons in dignity and respect. The revolving doors spun as Andrew entered the building's lobby. The space was impressive: marble floors, modern art installations, and a ceiling that seemed to float 20 feet above. For a company bleeding cash, they certainly hadn't cut corners on their headquarters. Andrew made a mental note to include facility costs in his efficiency recommendations. Several people milled about the lobby, some in casual tech company attire, others in business wear similar to his own. A group of executives stood chatting near the elevator bank, coffee cups in hand. Nobody paid particular attention to Andrew as he approached the reception desk, despite his commanding presence and obvious professional appearance. The portfolio in his hand contained more than just financial projections. It held potential, the potential to transform Techvision from a failing enterprise into a thriving organization. Andrew had done this before with other companies. His investment firm specialized in breathing new life into businesses that others had written off. It wasn't just about the money for him. It was about preserving jobs, fostering innovation, and building something sustainable. As he approached the sleek white reception desk, Andrew felt confident. This was his element. Boardrooms and business negotiations were where he excelled. 15 years of building his company from nothing had prepared him for moments exactly like this one. He had overcome countless obstacles, from rejection by traditional lenders when he started his business to competitors who underestimated him, and each challenge had only strengthened his resolve. Little did Andrew know that this seemingly routine meeting would test more than just his business acumen. The next few minutes would reveal character, both his own and that of the company he was considering saving. As he reached the reception desk with a polite smile, he had no idea that his decision today would send ripples through the entire industry and change the trajectory of hundreds of lives, including his own. Andrew approached the reception desk with a confident stride that had carried him through countless business meetings. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair, was typing rapidly on her keyboard, phone pressed between her ear and shoulder. She held up one finger without looking up, signaling Andrew to wait. After finishing her call, she finally glanced up. Her smile faded slightly as her eyes met his. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone noticeably cooler than the cheerful voice she had used on the phone moments ago. "Good morning," Andrew said warmly. "I have a 10 o'clock appointment with Mr. Reynolds. Andrew Wilson from Skyline Investments." He placed his business card on the counter, embossed with the logo of his company and his title as CEO and founder. The receptionist glanced at the card without picking it up. She looked Andra up and down, her eyes lingering on his expensive watch and tailored suit as if they didn't quite match her expectations. "Mr. Reynolds is very busy today," she said, pushing the card back toward him. "The executive calendar is packed." "Are you sure you have the right date?" Andra nodded patiently. "Yes, we confirmed yesterday. It's regarding the potential investment package." He kept his voice level, having encountered similar situations before. "My team sent over the preliminary documents last week." The receptionist's fingers clicked across her keyboard half-heartedly. "I don't see anything here," she muttered, though she had barely typed anything. "What did you say your company was?" "Skyline Investments," Andrew repeated, still maintaining his professional demeanor. "I'm the CEO. We're discussing a $50 million investment in Techvision." Just then, the main doors opened and 3 men in business casual attire walked in, laughing among themselves. The receptionist immediately brightened. "Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Reynolds is expecting you. Please help yourselves to coffee in the executive lounge, and I'll let him know you're here." The men, all white, nodded appreciatively as they were buzzed through the security gate without showing any identification. They disappeared down a hallway toward what was presumably the executive lounge. Andrew noticed the stark difference in treatment, but simply cleared his throat. "Perhaps you could call Mr. Reynolds' assistant to confirm my appointment." The receptionist sighed as if this was a tremendous inconvenience. She picked up the phone and dialed an extension, turning slightly away from Andra as she spoke. "There's someone here claiming to have an appointment with Mr. Reynolds." "Yes, a Mr. Wilson from some investment company." Her voice dropped to a whisper, but Andrew could still hear her. "Should I send him up or—" After a brief conversation, she hung up and turned back to Andra. "The executive floor is currently preparing for important meetings. You'll need to wait outside. We reserve the lobby for confirmed appointments and clients." She pointed toward the exit doors. "There's a bench just outside where you can wait until we verify your appointment." Andra blinked, momentarily taken aback. "Outside? In the chilly autumn morning?" He glanced around the spacious lobby with its numerous empty seating areas, all conspicuously vacant. "I understand you're busy," he said calmly, "but I'm the CEO of a company considering a major investment in Techvision. Is there nowhere inside I can wait while you confirm my appointment?" The receptionist's expression hardened. "Company policy. The lobby is for verified appointments only." She looked pointedly toward the door. "I'm sure Mr. Reynolds will send someone down if he's available. Until then, you'll need to wait outside." As if to emphasize the insult, the doors opened again and another businessman walked in. Without a second's hesitation, the receptionist greeted him by name and directed him to the comfortable waiting area inside the lobby. Andrew stood there for a moment, his expression unreadable. 15 years of building his company, managing billions in investments, and breaking barriers in the finance world. And here he was, being told to wait outside like an unwelcome solicitor. He adjusted his tie slightly, a small gesture that helped him maintain his composure, and made a decision that would alter the fate of Techvision forever. The morning air had grown colder as Andra sat on the metal bench outside Techvision's imposing headquarters. He watched as people hurried in and out of the building, many giving him curious glances. A CEO worth hundreds of millions, sitting outside like he was waiting for a bus. He checked his watch. 15 minutes had passed since the receptionist had told him to wait outside. Andra pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. His CFO picked up on the second ring. "How's the meeting going?" asked the voice on the other end. "It hasn't started yet," Andrew replied, his breath forming small clouds in the cool air. "I'm currently sitting on a bench outside the building." "Outside? What do you mean outside?" Andrew explained what had happened with the receptionist. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened," Andrew said quietly, watching another group of executives walk straight into the building without being questioned. "But it's the first time I've been told to wait outside a building like I'm not good enough to sit in their lobby." "Want me to call their executive office?" his CFO asked, anger evident in his voice. "No," Andrew replied. "But I do want you to pull up everything we have on Techvision's company culture. Past lawsuits, employee reviews, diversity reports, everything." Andrew heard keyboard clicks through the phone as his CFO immediately got to work. While he waited, Andrew opened his own tablet and began reviewing notes he'd made about Techvision. The company had innovative products but had struggled with leadership and direction. Their financial troubles were solvable with the right guidance and investment. On paper, it had seemed like a good match for Skyline's portfolio. But Andrew had learned long ago that numbers never told the whole story. His grandfather, who had built a small but successful neighborhood grocery despite facing discrimination in the 1960s, always told him, "Watch how people treat the janitor, not the boss. That shows you who they really are." Andrew had built his investment philosophy around that wisdom. He only invested in companies that valued everyone, from the cleaning staff to the CEO. Companies with toxic cultures might turn a quick profit, but they rarely sustain success. Got something, his CFO said, interrupting Andrew's thoughts. 3 discrimination lawsuits in the past 5 years, all settled out of court with non-disclosure agreements. Sent me the details, Andrew said, his expression hardening. There's more. Their executive team, 23 people, all white except for 1 Asian man. Their board, 7 white men, 1 white woman. What about their diversity statement on their website? They claim to be committed to inclusion. Pretty words, his CFO replied. But their employee reviews tell a different story. Lots of complaints about favoritism and a boys' club mentality. Wait, here's an interesting one. A former HR director left after just 8 months. Said she was hired to improve diversity but was blocked at every turn by upper management. Andrew's tablet pinged with incoming emails, the files his CFO was sending. He scrolled through them quickly, his decision crystallizing with each new piece of information. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Wilson, this is Reynolds' assistant. So sorry about the confusion. Mr. Reynolds is ready to see you now. Please come to the 40th floor." Andrew looked up at the gleaming tower, thinking about the millions of dollars Techvision desperately needed from him to stay afloat. He thought about the receptionist's dismissive attitude and the ease with which she had directed him outside while welcoming others inside. Then he thought about his parents, who had worked tirelessly to give him opportunities. His father, who had endured countless indignities with quiet strength. His mother, who had taught him that true success came with integrity. Andrew stood up, straightening his suit jacket. He had a decision to make, one that would affect hundreds of employees and shake an entire company to its foundation. He took a deep breath and walked back toward the building's entrance, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders, but clarity in his mind. Andrew had barely stepped back through the glass doors when he saw a tall man in an expensive gray suit rushing toward him. The man's face was flushed with embarrassment and concern. "Mr. Wilson, I am so incredibly sorry about this misunderstanding." The man extended his hand. "I'm Thomas Reynolds, CEO of Techvision. My assistant just informed me you were kept waiting outside. This is completely unacceptable." Andrew shook his hand firmly, his face revealing nothing of his thoughts. "These things happen," he said simply. "No, they shouldn't happen," Reynolds insisted, guiding Andrew toward the executive elevator with a hand on his back. "I want you to know this doesn't reflect our company values at all." As they passed the reception desk, Andrew noticed the receptionist suddenly became very interested in her computer screen, avoiding eye contact. Reynolds didn't acknowledge her at all. The elevator doors closed silently around them, and they began their smooth ascent to the 40th floor. Reynolds filled the silence with nervous chatter about the weather, the traffic, and the building's recent renovations. Andrew nodded politely but said little. When they reached the executive floor, Reynolds led him down a hallway lined with modern art into a spacious conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city below. Around a gleaming table sat 5 other executives, all standing as Andrew entered. "Everyone, this is Andrew Wilson, CEO of Skyline Investments," Reynolds announced. "Let's make sure he receives our full attention and respect today." The executives smiled and introduced themselves one by one. Andrew noted that Reynolds' comment about respect seemed directed at them, not at addressing the incident downstairs. "Coffee? Water? Anything at all?" Reynolds offered, pulling out a chair at the head of the table for Andrew. "Water is fine, thank you," Andrew replied, setting his portfolio on the table and taking a seat. The meeting began with a slick presentation about Techvision's products and potential. The chief financial officer walked through slides showing promising projections if only they could secure new investment. The marketing director talked about upcoming campaigns that would surely boost their market share. The head of product development described innovations that were just around the corner. None of them mentioned the company's financial troubles directly, though that was the very reason they needed Andrew's $50 million investment. Instead, they painted a rosy picture of temporary setbacks and future triumphs. Throughout the presentation, Andrew listened attentively, asking occasional questions that cut through the marketing speak to the heart of issues. His questions were precise and knowledgeable, showing he had done his homework thoroughly. Your operating costs increased by 32% last quarter, while revenue dropped 18%. What specific measures have you identified to address this gap? Andrew asked. The CFO fumbled through an explanation about market conditions and investment in growth. Andrew nodded thoughtfully. And your employee turnover rate has doubled in the past year. Have you analyzed the root causes? The HR director jumped in with vague comments about competitive hiring landscapes and industry-wide challenges. Andrew noticed how they glanced nervously at Reynolds before answering difficult questions. He observed the hierarchy in the room, the tension beneath the polished surface. Most tellingly, he noticed what wasn't being said. As the presentation concluded, Reynolds leaned forward eagerly. "So, Mr. Wilson, what do you think? We believe this partnership could be tremendously beneficial for both companies." Andrew closed his portfolio slowly. The room fell silent as everyone awaited his response. The future of their company might hang on his words. "Your products have potential," Andrew said carefully. "Your technical innovations are impressive. But I have some concerns that weren't addressed in your presentation." Reynolds' smile faltered slightly. "Concerns? We're happy to provide any additional information you need." "I appreciate that," Andrew replied, maintaining his professional demeanor. "I'd like to review some additional information before making my decision. Would it be possible for me to speak with some of your team members privately? Not just executives, but people throughout the organization." The executives exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't a standard request during investment meetings. "Of course," Reynolds said after a moment's hesitation, "whatever you need. We have nothing to hide at Techvision." Andrew nodded, knowing that his next steps would reveal whether that statement was true. The next 48 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity as Andrew conducted his personal investigation into Techvision. After the initial meeting, he had politely declined Reynolds' offer of a private car and driver, preferring to make his own arrangements. This gave him the freedom to return to Techvision at different times, speaking with employees at all levels without executive oversight. On the first afternoon, Andrew sat in the company cafeteria, his suit jacket folded neatly beside him as he ate lunch among the regular employees. A young programmer cautiously approached his table. "Aren't you the CEO of Skyline Investments?" she asked, clutching her lunch tray nervously. Andrew nodded and gestured to the empty chair across from him. "I am. Would you like to join me?" Their conversation started awkwardly but soon flowed naturally as Andrew asked thoughtful questions about her work and experiences at Techvision. Soon, other employees drifted over, drawn by Andrew's genuine interest and easy manner. "The technical teams are solid," one developer told him between bites of sandwich. "But morale has been dropping for months. 3 of our best engineers quit last month." "Why is that?" Andrew asked, careful to keep his tone conversational. The employees exchanged glances. "Ideas from certain people never get heard," another staff member explained carefully. "Then those same ideas appear in presentations later with someone else's name attached." By the end of lunch, Andrew had heard numerous stories of overlooked contributions, passed over promotions, and selective enforcement of company policies. The pattern was clear and troubling. The next morning, Andrew's team provided him with more information. His research analyst had compiled data showing Techvision's leadership had become increasingly homogeneous over the past 5 years. His legal advisor had uncovered not 3 but 7 discrimination complaints that had been quietly settled. "Most concerning is this," his CFO said during their video call, sharing a document on screen. "Their internal culture survey from last year. They buried it, but I got a copy from a former HR employee. 68% of minority staff reported feeling unwelcome or excluded from key decisions. Andrew nodded grimly. And their retention rates for those employees? Abysmal. Average tenure is less than 18 months. That afternoon, Andrew met with two former executives who had left Techvision in the past year. They met at a quiet coffee shop several blocks from the company headquarters. I couldn't change anything from inside, the former diversity director told him, stirring her coffee absently. Every initiative was met with resistance, not the right time. Budget constraints, always some excuse. The former vice president of engineering nodded in agreement. I brought in talented people from all backgrounds, but the culture ate them alive. When I raised concerns, I was labeled difficult and pushed out. On the second evening, Andrew returned to his hotel room and spread all his notes across the bed. The financial documents showed a company that could be saved with proper investment and leadership. But the cultural investigation revealed deeper problems that money alone couldn't fix. He thought about his own company, built from nothing over 15 years. From the beginning, he had made inclusion a cornerstone of his business philosophy, not just because it was right, but because diverse perspectives led to better decisions and stronger results. Skyline's success proved this approach worked. Andrew picked up his phone and called Reynolds, requesting a final meeting for the following morning. As he looked out at the city lights below his hotel window, he knew exactly what he needed to do. This wasn't just about one receptionist's behavior or even about how he had been treated. It was about a systemic problem that started at the top and flowed throughout the organization. He prepared his notes for tomorrow's meeting meticulously. Techvision needed his investment to survive. But some things were more important than money, and Andrew was about to teach them that lesson in the most powerful way possible. The morning light streamed through the windows of Techvision's executive conference room as Andrew took his seat across from Reynolds. This time, there was no rush of executives to impress him. At Andrew's request, the meeting included only Reynolds, the CFO, and the HR director. The atmosphere felt different, tense, expectant. Gone was the desperate eagerness to please from their first meeting, replaced by nervous anticipation. Reynolds smiled broadly, spreading his hands on the polished table. I trust your additional research has been helpful. My team tells me you've been quite thorough. I have, Andrew replied, opening his leather portfolio. Unlike the executives with their tablets and laptops, Andrew preferred paper for important meetings. Something about the permanence of ink on paper made these moments more real. And I appreciate everyone's cooperation. The HR director nodded too quickly. We're an open book here at Techvision. Andrew looked directly at her. Are you? His voice remained gentle, but the question hung in the air like a challenge. The CFO cleared his throat, eager to move things along. We've prepared the preliminary investment paperwork. He slid a folder across the table. We believe this partnership will be incredibly beneficial for both companies. Andrew left the folder untouched. Before we discuss any paperwork, I'd like to share what I've learned these past 2 days. He pulled out a single sheet of paper and placed it before them. This is Techvision's diversity statement from your website. It says your company values inclusion and creates opportunities for people of all backgrounds. Andrew's voice remained measured, professional. Beautiful words. No one spoke as Andrew pulled out another document. This is data on your executive hiring and promotion patterns over the past 5 years. He set it beside the first paper. The numbers tell a different story than your statement. The HR director stiffened. Reynolds maintained his smile, though it had grown more fixed. Your company has a pattern of driving away talented employees who don't fit a certain profile, Andrew continued. Your culture rewards some voices while silencing others. The receptionist who told me to wait outside wasn't an isolated problem. She was a symptom of something deeper. Reynolds leaned forward, his smile vanishing. One employee's actions don't define our entire company. We've already addressed that situation. Have you? Andrew asked quietly. What exactly did you address? Did you fire her? Or did you address the culture that made her comfortable treating me that way in the first place? The room fell silent. Your company isn't just struggling financially, Andrew said, his words deliberate and clear. It's struggling with its soul. You've created an environment where innovation is stifled because too many voices go unheard. where talent walks out the door because people aren't valued equally. The CFO shifted uncomfortably. With all due respect, Mr. Wilson, you're here to evaluate a financial investment, not our HR policies. Andrew smiled slightly. That's where you're wrong. I'm evaluating everything. The numbers, the products, the people, the culture. Everything matters when I decide where to invest $50 million. Reynolds' face had grown pale. And your decision? Andrew closed his portfolio slowly. I won't be investing in Techvision. The executives exchanged alarmed glances. But you can't just, the CFO started. I can, Andrew interrupted calmly. And I am. My investment firm has a core principle. We only partner with companies that value every person's contribution. Companies that understand diversity isn't just a nice word for the website, it's a business advantage. Reynolds stood suddenly. Let's be reasonable. Whatever concerns you have, we can address them. Form a diversity committee. Hire a consultant, whatever it takes. Andrew stood as well, buttoning his suit jacket with steady hands. Those solutions only work when the leadership genuinely believes there's a problem to solve. You don't. You see this as an obstacle to overcome to get my money. He gathered his papers, tucking them neatly back into his portfolio. What happened to me at reception wasn't just embarrassing, it was revealing. It showed me who you really are when you think no one important is watching. Andrew walked to the door, then turned back one last time. The truly sad thing is that you have talented people here who could help this company thrive, if only you valued what they bring to the table. But that's a lesson you'll have to learn without my help. With those words, he walked out, leaving behind 3 stunned executives and a company teetering on the edge of collapse. News travels fast in the business world. By the end of the week, word had spread that Skyline Investments had walked away from the Techvision deal. The financial papers ran headlines speculating about Techvision's future without the crucial investment they had been counting on. The company's stock plummeted 20% in a single day. Andrew sat in his downtown office, looking out at the city skyline as his team delivered the latest updates. Techvision had issued a brief statement claiming the investment talks had ended due to differing visions for future growth. Nothing about what had really happened. They're scrambling to find another investor, his CFO reported, scrolling through his tablet. No luck so far. Word is getting around about their culture problems. 3 more executives have jumped ship this week. Andrew nodded thoughtfully. His decision had been difficult but necessary. He believed in standing firm on principles, but he also couldn't help thinking about the hundreds of regular employees at Techvision whose jobs were now at risk. What about the list I asked for? Andrew asked. His head of talent development placed a folder on his desk. Here are 32 standout employees from Techvision, people with excellent skills who were overlooked or undervalued there. Engineers, designers, marketing specialists, many of them from backgrounds underrepresented in tech. Good, Andrew said, opening the folder. Reach out to all of them. Offer interviews with companies in our portfolio that might be a good fit. Let's help good people land on their feet. The following Monday morning, Andrew called a meeting with his executive team. They gathered in the company's glass-walled conference room, curious about the urgent agenda. Outside the window, construction workers were busy on a new building across the street, a visible reminder of growth and change. The Techvision situation got me thinking, Andrew began, standing at the head of the table, about how many other companies are out there with brilliant products and talented people, but toxic cultures holding them back. He clicked a button, and a presentation appeared on the wall screen. I'm proposing we create a new division within Skyline. A $30 million fund specifically designed to invest in businesses with proven inclusive practices and diverse leadership. His team leaned forward, intrigued. We'll focus on companies that might be overlooked by traditional investors, Andrew continued. Not as charity cases, but as smart investments, because the data shows that diverse companies perform better in the long run, that innovate more effectively. They understand broader markets. The team began discussing logistics, asking questions about criteria and implementation. The energy in the room was electric. This wasn't just a reaction to what had happened at Techvision, it was building something positive from that experience. As the meeting wrapped up, Andrew's assistant entered with an envelope. "This just arrived for you," hand-delivered. Andor opened it after everyone left. Inside was a brief handwritten note from the young programmer he'd met in Techvision's cafeteria. She thanked him for the interview opportunity with one of Skyline's portfolio companies and shared that 12 other Techvision employees had also received similar outreach. "You didn't just walk away," she wrote. "You opened doors for us. That matters more than you know." 6 months later, Andrew stood at a podium addressing a business leadership conference. The room was packed with executives, entrepreneurs, and business students eager to hear from the man who had become something of a legend after the Techvision story leaked. "People often ask if I regret walking away from that investment," Andrew told the audience. "The answer is no. Some opportunities come with too high a price, not in dollars, but in values." He paused, looking across the diverse faces watching him. "That day, I wasn't just a CEO making a business decision. I was a human being saying, how we treat people matters. Who we welcome matters. The voices we listen to matter." His voice carried throughout the silent room. True success isn't measured just by revenue or market share. It's measured by the culture we create and the dignity we afford to everyone who walks through our doors. The applause was thunderous. In the back of the room, a group of employees from his new inclusive investment fund beamed with pride. Among them were former Techvision staff, now thriving in a workplace that valued their talents. As for Techvision, they had filed for bankruptcy protection the previous month, not just because they lost one investment, but because the culture that had driven away their receptionist's unwelcome visitor had been driving away their best talent for years.